see a sucker suit on a hot summer day. Coffee comes back in a nerve-wracking way. The dishes and laundry take the garbage out. What a day, what a day, what a day.
Welcome to Capital Region today. I'm so happy you're joining us today. We've got a great lineup, and if you haven't done your taxes yet, you're going to find out more about how you can get those done. We're going to be talking with one of our guests who's going to be talking about taxes and how you can get them done for free. We're also going to be talking with someone who's doing the 12th night, a little Shakespeare, but with a new twist. So that'll be fun to talk about. Then we're going to be talking about the Octavo singers, and they have a program coming up, and we're going to talk about that. We have the artistic director on the show, so that's really going to be a treat. Then we're having an author on, and he's an author that focuses on Saratoga, and it's really an amazing style of work that he does with his books, so we're going to talk about that. And then we have a poet on who's going to be talking about poetry and perhaps how you can get started or find out more about becoming a poet or reading poetry. We're going to cover everything there. And, of course, Easter's coming up, and so is Passover, so we want to wish everybody who's celebrating both of those holidays to enjoy them. So we're going to start right out with Richard Zazycki, and he's with the Circles of Mercy, and we have Joanne Passineau, and she's the site director for the VITA program, VITA, which is Volunteers Income Tax Assistance. Right, got it? Good, yeah.
Good morning.
So it's good to have you guys on the show.
It's nice to be here, thanks.
And are you busy doing taxes? And why are you here then?
Well, we're here to cast doom and gloom. Doom and gloom on those that haven't filed yet.
Yeah, really, but they still have a week or so to do.
They wait till the last minute.
Yeah, I try to get mine done by the end of February. That's my deadline, end of February.
So this year, taxes end on April 18th. You have to file.
Because of the holiday, yeah.
Correct. So what we're going to do is discuss a couple things that you might encounter as pitfalls in your tax preparation. We're very fortunate to have Joanne with us. She's retired from the IRS and has been our site coordinator. Better part of 5-6 years now.
Yeah.
So she runs a tight ship.
Yeah. Joanne? Good. Okay, let's talk about the taxes then. Go ahead.
Okay.
And we have a little slide presentation as well,
slides
so yeah.
So
take notes.
yes, both the IRS and New York State provide access to free filing. You can file your federal return at IRS Free File. On the web, you can access both the federal and state returns for free, safe, secure privacy of your own home, and adjusted gross income, which is $73,000. So it's got to be under that amount in order to use the free filing service.
Right, and I just want to add, when you do that, if you go into New York State and you ask for free filing, they'll give you, in order to do your New York State return, you got to do your federal return. So therefore, they'll give you what the income is, the income levels, because some of them will only let you do it if you're 60,000 and under. Some will let you do 72,000, but they'll tell you.
They'll let you know ahead of time, right.
So there are some common errors to avoid. Probably the biggest one that we encounter is Social Security number. We require you to bring in your Social Security card to alleviate that issue because that's how the taxes are filed. That's how the communications takes place between us and the IRS, or us in New York State is by your Social Security number. So those kind of transposing of numbers or using the wrong number causes an error. The dependent's last name, errors in filing status. My weak area is math and computation errors, so we're always having issues.
Are you still using an abacus?
Yes. Incorrect bank number, either the bank routing number or the banking account number for direct deposits. Forgetting to sign the return. That's a big one. That's one thing that they do, particularly if you're filing a paper return. there's always somebody looking for that signature.
Can they still file a paper return? I thought everything had to be electronic.
No, you still can. We initially do everything electronically, but if we need to amend a return for some error, most of the time it's with a paper return.
Okay.
And then the other thing to remember is sites that are open on April 17th and 18th, dial 211, tell the community resource operator your zip code, and she'll let you know where the free filing sites are within your area. Catholic Charities at 40 North Main Avenue will be providing a walk-in site on the 18th. After the 18th, what do you do? Suppose you're-
Pay a penalty.
Yeah, Joanne's gonna,
Right.
yeah, Joanne's gonna talk about that in a second, but after the 18th, if you need to find out what you can do or where to go, you certainly can contact the United Way or 211. You can call the Taxpayer Assistance Office down in Albany at the Leo O'Brien Building. The phone number's on the screen. And the Taxpayer Advocate for New York State Tax and Finance, that phone number's on the screen. So those are the things that you can do. Joanne's going to talk a little bit about filing on time, if you forget.
Right. It's very important that you file your income tax return on time, even if you don't have the money. Because if not, you're gonna get hit with a 25% penalty, a maximum of 25% penalty.
That's a lot.
It's 5% each month for failure to file. In addition, you get interest on that money you owe. So you're getting hit with a lot of things. Usually what happens is you get a 4.5% of your maximum penalty, and then you get a 0.5% for failure to pay penalty, and then you get interest on top of that. So the maximum penalty is 25% of the taxes you owe. That's a lot of money. So get those returns in as fast as you can. File the tax return. You can always amend it if you need additional information. But if you get your income tax return in, you save yourself a heck of a lot of money. Then if you owe money, there are options out there. So get that return in. There's no excuses.
Yeah.
It's free on all internet. You can go to the library. You just can do it. So, and if you have any questions, call the IRS.
Or give us a call. One of the things that the next slide showing is how do you file an extension? So the easiest thing to do would be to go to the irs.gov website, type in file an extension. It'll show you what form to use. In this case, you're going to use form 4868, and it's a PDF form that you can actually fill in all the information. Even though you're filing for an extension, it's amazing the number of people think that they don't have to pay the tax then, and that's not true. You need to estimate what your tax liability is, if you have one. And then mail out that form, and then the extension is for 6 months only to October the 16th. So please be aware that an extension of time to file is not an extension of time to pay the taxes, as Joanne mentioned previously. You want to talk about the next thing, Joanne?
Yeah, sure.
Yeah,
Options to pay your liability.
We're getting close to time, so I said we're getting close to time.
Oh, all right.
Yeah, that's okay.
So you got many options. The best thing to do is when you get the bill, the first bill you get from the IRS after you file your tax return, call them. Tell them what you can afford each month and set up a payment agreement. Do not negate on that. Just keep filing and paying. And also, another thing is, if you owe this year, you might want to look at the W-4 form at your employers. I just looked at it for my daughter, who owes $3,000 in taxes. And what happened is they changed the W-4 forms, so they're not going along with what we're doing and what our income level is. So I had her file as a single person, even though she's married, file as a single person.
With zero deductions, you
Yeah,
said.
and then, they don't even let you have the zero deduction.
Oh, really?
You've got to tell them how much you want.
Yeah.
The dollar amount almost. So I told her to take an extra $100 or maybe go put more money into your retirement, pre-tax.
Yeah.
You got a lot of options here, but don't tell the, get to the IRS and get them set up with
Yeah.
payment.
Yeah. The other thing too is to remember, if you're moving from one job to the next, you want to be careful about rolling over your retirement funds. That's a big thing. A lot of times that rollover goes in the name of Ann Perillo, and then it looks like you got the money and hasn't done it.
Oh, you didn't get it.
And you
It
didn't
just,
get it.
it's a rollover.
Okay, so you got to make sure that that's what
That's a
happens.
good point.
One of the last things we want to talk about is how to find out the status of your refund. Both New York State and the IRS have a button on their website. It says right there, "Where's my refund?" You click on it. They're going to ask you 3 questions. They're going to ask you your Social Security number. They're going to ask you what your filing status was, whether single, married, filing separately, whatever. And then they're going to ask you what your exact refund amount is from your return.
That negates anybody else trying to get in there.
Correct,
Yeah.
and that's something we tell the individuals, that make sure that they begin to check the status of their refund 7 to 10 business days after they've been deceased.
Well, I have to say that I filed electronically in the end of February, and within a week, I got my refund. It went right to my bank. So it works quite well. So basically, if you want to get your taxes done for free, you can contact Richard here over at the
Circles of Mercy.
Mercy. Joanne will be there in person to help you.
Yes, definitely.
Good.
Yes,
You like your new role?
I loved helping people with doing their taxes because I try to educate them,
Yeah.
when they come in, if they don't understand, because it's a big process and everybody don't want anything to do with it.
Well, I think that the issue is with doing your taxes is gathering everything. That's the biggest thing, is gathering everything and seeing what you need. Because once you do it, I think I did mine in like less than an hour. It was bam, 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 it was done.
Right,
So,
and
including.
it guides you, something you don't want to miss, because if you answer this question, it'll direct you right there. So
Yeah.
doing it electronically is great.
It's perfect, yes. Well,
So
thank
the-
you both.
You're welcome.
Anything else you want to
One
wrap
other-
up with?
Just 2 things. One, if you're not sure about what to do or where to go, dial 211.
Okay.
Or you can dial directly to the IRS, 1-800-829-1040.
Okay.
And good luck.
Okay, good. And I hope you both got your taxes done.
No, I haven't, not yet.
Oh, my
I always
goodness.
wait till last minute.
Go home and do your taxes.
Yes, mine's done.
Thanks for
I got my refunds already.
Thank you both for being here. It's always a pleasure to see you around the tax
right.
season. Not that we're happy about tax seasons, but we're happy about seeing you here.
Okay.
Good.
Thanks, Ann.
Yeah.
Look
We're
forward
going to switch over here. We have Sean Baldwin with us, and he is with the Bunbury Players. I want to say that right. And you're doing 12th night, but you're doing something a little bit different with 12th night.
Indeed, and it was not by design, it just kind of happened to happen this way, but we have an all-female and non-binary, feminine end of the spectrum cast for 12th night, which is exciting because in a play where gender bending already plays such a prominent role, why not double down on it?
Well, what's really funny that you're doing it all female is that when Shakespeare was having his productions performed, they had to all be done by men. So
Exactly.
Romeo and Juliet was a man, right?
Absolutely. So, and on top of that, the people playing the women's characters would typically be played by teenage boys.
Yeah.
So, now we're doing this. So not only do we have the diversity.
We're getting even now.
Yeah, we're getting even now. And on top of that, we also have teenagers in the show who play adult roles. So, we're flipping the gender side on its head. We're flipping the age side on its head.
That's wonderful. So how does it feel to do Shakespeare, or have you done it before?
I've acted in Shakespeare a few times before. This is my first attempt at directing it. What I like about it is Shakespeare always has a built-in audience and always has a very built-in, devoted group of actors for it. There are people who are obsessed with Shakespeare, and they've got a lot of passion for it, which, frankly, is one of my favorite things about theater, just working with people who are so passionate about what they do. So far it's been a great experience. We've had a lot of fun both with, exploring the characters and exploring, the characterization. For some of these actors, it's the first time they've played a male character, and, you've got to analyze sort of like, okay, well, how do you walk different? How do you speak different? How do you sit in a chair different? But on
How do you
top
cross
of
your legs different, right?
Exactly. See, I'm partial with this personally, but
Me too.
but I also don't want to knock your mic off your desk there by trying to do that. But But I've been very lucky. We've got such a good cast that are so fun to work with, and they're very excited to do the work. So we're very excited to share it with you all.
Okay, for those who probably fell off the edge of the planet here, tell us what Twelfth Night is about.
So Twelfth Night begins with a young noblewoman being shipwrecked on the island of Illyria, and she decides that the best thing to do to basically protect herself. She doesn't want to be, a young woman alone in the world. She's going to disguise herself as a man, and she's going
So
to...
you have, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
We have a woman who's disguising herself as a man in the show.
That is playing a woman. Okay,
Yeah,
got it.
Yeah, a woman playing a woman disguising herself as a man. And then later we have women who are playing male characters.
Okay.
Because it wasn't confusing
What
enough
fun.
as is. But she decides she's going to disguise herself as a man and become a servant to the local duke. The local duke, meanwhile, is pining away over another noblewoman. But poor Viola is the lead character's name, who's disguised herself as a man. She finds herself falling in love with this duke. And the
But
duke,
she's looking
dressed
as a male. Yeah,
Yep.
okay, got it.
So, there's this whole, element of fluidity there. But then obviously the Duke sends her to basically try to woo this noblewoman on her behalf. And this noblewoman looks at this, young lady disguised as a man and thinks, wow, he's really attractive. So suddenly there's a very bizarre love triangle happening and very many cases of mistaken identities and pompous fools being made
But
to look
isn't
like
that
idiots.
what Shakespeare is all about?
Exactly. Shakespeare is not the poetry is beautiful, but it's not as hoity-toity as a lot of people think.
No, but he was a master with words. though.
Absolutely.
We still use phrases that he's, if you look at Hamlet, many of the phrases in Hamlet we use every day.
Absolutely. Shakespeare invented something like 500 words that we now
Oh, wait a minute,
use.
invented?
So, this is a little bit gross, but he is the first published usage of the word puke.
Really?
Yeah. It's in the same monologue as All the World's a Stage and Men Are Nearly Players.
Yeah.
And it talks about a baby mewling and puking in the nurse's arms, and that became adopted as...
And so we still use that word.
Indeed, we do.
Oh,
Mind you,
God.
he's also
well,
created...
Thank you for that. I did not
You're
know
welcome.
that.
He's created several more pleasant words as
I'm
well.
sure
That's
that
just
I'll
one
be
that
able-
stands out in my brain.
I'm sure I'll be able to use that in conversations.
I'm
sometime.
sure. Yeah, you want to know something cool about puke?
So you're learning a little bit more about Shakespeare than yourself.
I'm trying to. It's as if my grandfather says, if he stops learning, he gets old, and he's 81 and still very young, so I'm sort of holding to that.
Good.
But yeah, this is my first time being involved in Twelfth Night on either side of the stage, so...
Have you played in it?
I have not played in it.
Okay.
I've seen a few interpretations of it. Admittedly, my first exposure was in the early 2000s. There was a teen movie with some Nickelodeon stars called She's the Man, which is basically sort of
The same thing.
Yeah, it was a
Same,
reskinning
yeah.
of it, the same way that West Side Story is Romeo and
Exactly.
Juliet.
Yeah, you got it.
So that was my first exposure to it. But I had not, I'd seen it once or twice done on stage very traditionally, so...
It kind of gave you a feel for it.
It gave me a feel for it, it sort of gave me an idea of, things we could do, things that I'd like to try differently. So, on
Okay.
top of the all-female cast, we're also doing it in the round, which will be interesting.
Oh, you're doing it around?
Indeed.
Oh, I like that.
Oh, yeah, over at the Albany Barn.
Yeah.
They've got a very nice stage there, and we're going to ignore it entirely and just do it on the floor in the round.
I like that. You're really being creative throughout this.
Yeah, Shakespeare has been done so many times in so many different ways that, frankly, if we were to present it as it was written in the way Shakespeare intended, that in and of itself would be pretty creative and groundbreaking. But, with something like this, you really have to go all out or, do it relatively bare bones and let the focus be on the beauty of the language and the performances. So that's what we've opted to do here.
Now, you mentioned that this is the first time that you have directed a Shakespearean play.
Indeed.
Have you directed other plays?
I have. I actually just finished. I'm also president of Confetti Stage over in Albany.
Oh, yeah, they do some good stuff
we do.
there, yeah.
Thank you very much. I just finished directing She Kills Monsters over there.
I saw that and it got good reviews.
It did, and we're very pleased. I am so happy that so many people got to see it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I've been directing since I was about 16 or 17 years old. I got started with, a high school one-act play. It was a parody of Dracula, and I'm pretty sure I did an awful job, but I think I've learned a thing or two in the intervening years, so I'm hopeful that this will be...
And hopefully it wasn't on film then, right?
If it is, I haven't seen it. I'm not sure I care to.
So tell us, so you mentioned that it's going to be at the Albany Barn. Where's
Yes.
the Albany Barn?
The Albany Barn.
And it's not a barn. We got to
It's
tell
not.
people that.
It's not. It's not a barn. It's never been a barn. It used to be an old Catholic school, actually.
I know. Yeah.
St. Joseph, St. John,
Yeah, I can't
something or
remember which
others.
one, yeah.
But it's in Albany and Arbor Hill on 2nd Avenue. And it's become this really cool artist space where, artists can apply for residencies and basically have their own studio space
There's
too.
one in Schenectady, too.
There is one too, the Electric City Barn.
Yeah,
It's also
yeah.
affiliated. And it's just one of those places you step into it and you can just feel the creativity in the air. And somebody might be in one room sculpting, another person is, creating, this beautiful dress in a sewing studio. You can hear music tinkling away from a music studio. It's just a great environment to be in.
What a
for
great
theater.
environment. And the
Exactly.
fact that somebody had the vision to put something like that together and then to make one in Schenectady as well, which is an old
Absolutely.
school as well.
Ah.
An old Catholic school. I think it was St. Columbus School.
Old schools make great spaces. What better place to learn and explore?
Yeah, exactly. So it's located on 2nd Avenue.
Yes.
And when is this performance going to be?
So the show runs from April 21st through the 23rd at 8 p.m.
Okay.
Bunbury
Is
players.
there a matinee at all?
There is a matinee on the 23rd, and that is at, I believe, 3 p.m.
Okay, good.
And I'm sure my producer is watching this at home going, no, it's wrong, you dolt. But if I'm wrong, I'll say I'm wrong.
Yeah, we'll correct
Fix
it
it in
somehow.
post.
Yeah, well, we'll edit it in.
Fair.
Not really, but
Yeah. I'll give you some sound bites of my voice you can use later to edit it. But there will be a matinee. Bunbury Players runs by, they don't charge admission, they take donations. We do recommend a $20 donation, but whatever you care to pay, whether
well,
it's...
here's something, because I've been involved with theater and stuff. There's no royalties on this, is there?
Absolutely, no.
See, so that's why people are doing Shakespeare.
Exactly, there's no royalty. Well, and on top of that, it also means you can sort of make cuts and edits as you see fit because, this play, we could make it be 3 hours long. I don't know about you, but I don't usually have the patience for a night. I mean,
No.
yeah, obviously if it's done really well and you can really hold my attention, that's great, but at the same
Was it
time,
originally 3 hours long?
it's one of those things where it can be, but, it sort of depends, how fast of a clip you're moving at. But on top of that, when it was originally presented, it was sort of you're putting it on at the end of the day, 5 p.m. or so. When people are done with work, they're going straight to the theater. And you're basically ruled by whatever light is up in the sky, so you got to finish before the sun sets.
Exactly.
So to that end, it's also one of those things where we'd like to make it as easy as possible on our actors where, we've got 2 months to put this together, but let's not drive ourselves too nuts. Because Shakespeare is very pretty, but, sometimes you can trim some of the vines away, as it were.
Okay, well, just don't cut too many of his
I would-
marvelous words.
I wouldn't dare.
Leave some of them in there.
I wouldn't dare, no. Most of them are still there, I promise.
That's okay. Sean Baldwin, he's the director of Twelfth Night, which is done with an all-female cast. How amazing is that? And you can see it from April 21st to the 23rd over at the Albany Barn, and it is not a barn, so enjoy.
So don't look for a barn.
No, thank you for being
Thank
here,
you
Sean.
so much.
And,
It's a
and I
pleasure.
hope that your production is a fabulous one. It's just like Monsters was.
Well, I really appreciate that. Thank
good.
you.
Thank you. And now we're going to go about music. Oh my goodness! And we have the artistic director of Octavo Singers. You have a great bunch of singers, don't you?
Yes, we do, and we're very excited for our next concert, which is coming up at the end of the month.
Okay. And what is that?
So we are putting on the Brahms German Requiem.
Okay.
Alongside.
Why do you say German Requiem?
So we are singing it in German.
Oh, you're singing
yes,
it in German.
It's that's its original language.
Woo.
And as current director of Octavos, I really believe in doing work in original language as often as we can.
Wow.
It creates an incredible change in color to a piece of music, or even a play. You were just talking about Shakespeare and the English, and so the German in this piece, much like listening to a play, it really changes the atmosphere and the mood of the music. And so we're doing Brahms's original text that he got from the Luther translation of the Bible, words from Holy
Real?
Scripture,
Oh my goodness.
rather than a typical requiem we think of as a Latin mass.
Latin. I always think of Latin for Requiem.
A liturgical piece that they would have used as a mass setting. Is a very different idea of what a requiem is, and he's using his own words. He's chosen words himself for this music, so it's a very special piece. Just for that reason alone. Not only that, it's incredibly special for choral music as a whole. It's really one of the all-time greats.
Have you done this before?
I have
Andrew?
sung it a number of times.
Okay. In German?
In German, and a few of the individual movements are often done as standalone pieces in English,
Okay.
whether with church choirs or other groups, and I've done those tons of times.
Okay.
But this is my first time fully directing it, and I'm very eager to present it.
Okay. I don't think of German. I took German. I took 3 years of German. I don't speak any, but I took 3 years of it. That was many years ago. I don't see German as being a fluidity
Yeah.
to
Well,
it. Or is that just me? Or
To that a lot of people say that, and I say, well, then you're in for a real treat.
Oh, okay.
Because hardly this is common. You say, oh, well, I don't speak any German. Just like anybody showing up to a choir might say, oh, I don't know any Latin. I don't know any French. Whatever.
Yeah.
And so a great joy as a director and as a singer is learning this language, the diction. And much like when I was here talking about Messiah in the fall,
And that was done in English.
in English,
Right.
and I said this about the English: you wouldn't sing it in the same way as you would speak it, right? There's so much enunciation. There's so much work that has to be done singing. Just like, and I love being here when there are other directors and plays and poetry and all of this stuff, because there is such a through line with a lot of this art. And when you put spoken word and sung word and these things together, you start thinking about, even though there are these different mediums, it's sung, it's spoken, it's presented as a play, the heart of it is the text. And so our job as musicians and as singers is how can we very clearly and very accurately convey this text that otherwise we have no idea what these words are. Mm-hmm. It really becomes a learning process. And a lot of singers will come up to me after rehearsals and say, we're so enjoying, actually going through the process of learning this text.
Oh, wow.
Whether or not they're familiar with the English version or not. So that's been a real delight, is the learning process, not only with the music, but with the language itself.
And the pronunciation,
And
they're
the- and
able
the
to get that?
pronunciation-
Because
Absolutely. We go very slowly. A treat with a group this big. And
How many?
And so going into this, we're about somewhere between 75 and 80.
You built up quite a bit after
Absolutely.
COVID.
So Messiahs, typically we have, it's our most robust
I know it
songs.
is.
But we were very clear in saying, do not let this language turn you away, because it's been a real treat to sing this and to learn it. We go very slowly in rehearsals. We take our time. We've been working on this concert since the end of January, and we separate the music, the pitches, and the rhythms from the diction itself. We spend time just reciting the diction
words.
slowly, and all of these things together make for a really great rehearsal process.
This is amazing what
Yeah.
you're doing. This is an amazing story to
Absolutely,
me. Yeah.
absolutely, and it's very exciting. We're really eager. All of our singers are really eager to put this concert on. Like I mentioned, it's really one of the all-time greats for not only the meaning of the text, which, like I mentioned, is a lot different than just a typical requiem. It deals much more about the first line in English, it would be, blessed are those who mourn. So already, rather than saying in a regular requiem, blessed are the dead, requiem aeternam, may they last forever in eternal light, and all of that stuff from the Latin, this is Selig sind die da Leid tragen. Blessed are those who have died, and blessed are those who mourn for the dead.
Okay.
So it's it's so much more humanist, so much more like emotional. It deals with reconciliation. It deals with grief and consolation, and the coming to terms with fleeting mortality in very, very beautiful music. And so, for that reason also, this is going to be a very, very special
How
program.
long is the piece?
The Brahms itself is about 70 minutes.
Okay.
65 to 70, depending on how energetic I'm feeling with the pace of things.
You can pick up the...
But paired with this piece, we're also doing a much shorter work. We're doing Verdi's Stabat Mater, which is very rarely done as a standalone piece. And so here we get some of the flavor of that Latin. It's
So Verdi you're doing in Latin.
Verdi we're doing in Latin.
Okay.
And the poem itself is very old. It's a 13th century text, and it is about the grief and suffering of Mary standing beside the cross. And so this text is rarely done because it's a Holy Week piece. And so this, again, very emotional, but in a much different way than the Brahms. And Verdi, of course, as with all of his operas and his own Requiem, very dramatic. And that piece only about 12 minutes long. So you get sort of a bite-sized piece of this very dramatic Italian music, and then the larger Brahms, which is just such a treat to prepare.
I think you're having a good time.
I'm having a great time.
I know.
It really is such a joy to work with this chorus. And I've got to say, the community that is built around it, they've welcomed me fully, and I'm really appreciative of that, but I'm also appreciative of what is there. We have a board that is very active. Diane was supposed to be here this morning.
That's okay. Well,
She's feeling a little under the weather. We'll get her next time. But not only that, our beautiful poster made by our own Kate Kilmer. We have a number of folks who work behind the scenes
every
for these
production.
things. Every
And nobody
production does. Your
realizes-
production does.
yeah.
The Shakespeare folks.
Yeah.
I mean, it doesn't matter, and that's such a great thing for artistic organizations, is that there really are people who put the work in for their art.
Absolutely.
It's so great.
And they're passionate about it.
Yes.
But you have a wonderful venue. You're going to be
Yes,
doing
we
it
do.
at Pius X.
We are going to be putting this on at St. Pius X in Loudonville, and talk about beautiful music and beautiful spaces. It's such a great space for music.
I have not been there. Is it a cathedral? Or
The
what
acoustics are great. It's sort of a modern cathedral.
Okay.
There's a lot of wood, and so that
the resonance
right
area.
away the acoustic is really great for that. It's a great open space. You know, we've got so many singers. We're going to have a full orchestra.
You're doing this to full orchestra?
Absolutely, and they're fabulous
What
players.
orchestra? Is it your own orchestra? Or
It's a group we've put together. It's mostly Schenectady Symphony players.
Okay.
And so shout out to them, but also it's a lot of community musicians who do a lot of these sorts of concerts, and they're going to sound great, and we're so grateful to have them. A couple of really talented soloists we've got for this as well, young artists who do lyric opera. Our baritone soloist is the recently appointed choral faculty at SCC.
Wow,
and so this really is a community, a coming together
Gives a wonderful
to put
platform,
on this
too.
music.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
I'm really happy to hear that you're doing some good stuff. And
Yes,
so
we are.
we didn't say when it was.
So this is April 30th, end of
Okay.
the month, Sunday afternoon at 4 p.m.
Okay.
Tickets are available at the door or online. If you go to our website, you
Okay.
can get tickets there, and we hope you do, because I think we're expecting quite a good crowd.
Is
for
there a
this.
limited space, or?
It's a large space, but
So
I
you
would
can get a
I
lot
would-
of people in there.
I would definitely get your tickets now, though,
Good.
because that may fill up, and we hope it does.
Yeah, and we are so fortunate to have Andrew in our community now, Andrew Berger, in our community, to do some creative things. I
Absolutely.
like that. Yeah, German, that's really interesting.
It's going to be great. Yeah.
Good for you.
Auf Deutsch.
Good.
Thank you so much.
Thank
Ann.
you for being here, and
right.
I hope Diane's feeling better today.
Yes,
Good.
thanks.
We're going to switch right over, and we're going to be talking with an author, and he came in his finery here today. Hollis is here, Hollis Palmer. Hollis, and I've talked to him. He's written many books. He's written nonfiction, but he's written fiction. And his fiction focuses on,
Some of the great families of Saratoga. Back
Saratoga.
during the Gilded Age.
yeah, the Gilded Age. I was telling him I'm enjoying his book. As a matter of fact, I think I have it with me here somewhere. Maybe I bet I left it in my other. That's not my book, because I got, no, it's okay. I have my book, I must have left it in my box. Anyway, it's called What If? And you have Maggie's Revenge was that
Yes. That was my third book. and this is my
precursor?
14th.
Yeah. But this is called What If? And I do want to mention that when you read his books about Saratoga, it kind of drops you into another era, but there's so much history in it that it becomes fascinating.
Thank you.
Can I say that?
Absolutely, please do.
Yeah. So how did you, the research that you must have done is amazing.
I have loved Saratoga my whole life. Okay, it's just been one of those things that I grew up just outside of South Glens Falls. Used to go there all the time. And I always remember when I went by the big houses, I'd go, who lives there? How did, because we did not live in one of those houses, I can tell you.
Right.
And so when we were, I got involved from that point of view. And after I finished my doctorate, like everybody else in the world, I was 50, I took a year off. And I found this true crime that happened at exactly the same time as O.J. Simpson's big trial.
True crime.
True crime. And it was a very similar one, and I wrote it, that's called To Spend Eternity Alone. And I started getting into true crime. I went from true crime to doing history, to doing a couple business books. Then I wrote a book called CNBC in Saratoga in the Victorian Era, which should be the Gilded Age, my mistake. And
So wait a minute. The Gilded Age and Victorian. What is the difference?
Victorian definitely applies to Europe.
Oh, to
Gilded
Europe.
Age applies to us.
I
The
did not
difference
know
was
that.
The big part of the Victorian era was British nobility trying to marry wealthy American women.
That was going
That was
on.
what it was- that's what it was
Absolutely.
really
Yeah.
about. The women were called buccaneers.
Yeah.
In the United States,
Well,
we're
that's
just
what this book covers that.
Yeah, it does, yes. And because it becomes part of what, well, yes, Saratoga is very much in the middle of those kind of things. In America, we were more about new money. We weren't trying to save old estates. We weren't trying, what had happened is nobility had all invested in land in Europe. And suddenly, with international trading,
It didn't make.
it wasn't worth that much.
No, it wasn't.
And they did not go into industry because anybody could go into industry. So
That
in
wasn't. That
America-
wasn't quite elite enough,
you got
right?
it. And in America, we went industry. So I maintain that we should be called the Gilded Age. And unfortunately, I wrote the book before I came to that conclusion.
But we are the Gilded Age, aren't we?
We are the Gilded Age, yes. And I
And
wish I
why
had
is
put
it
the-
called the Gilded Age? Because of, I think of gilding as being like gold and things like that.
over the top of something that wasn't fine.
Oh, okay,
You gild something, make it look like it's gold, but it's not.
okay.
And it all comes
It's
about
fake,
because of
fake,
Mark.
fake,
Yeah,
sort of.
Mark Twain wrote a book in 1876 called The Gilded Age.
Yeah.
And he was absolutely perfect because that's what we were doing. We had people who were 2 generations from living in a log cabin, suddenly wealthy. And then how did they behave, et cetera? So they put glitter on people who were just plain.
That's sort of like the Molly Brown story
You got it.
with where they were dirt poor and then.
Yep. Well, the main characters in the book that we're talking about, the main families, one of them are the cousins of Leland Stanford University, who's from Albany.
Yeah,
That
yeah,
family's
and
from
Stanford
Albany.
University.
Yes, okay. And they were okay, but that's all they were 2 generations before. And suddenly they're among the richest people in the United States, with servants, et cetera, et cetera. So you get, it's a whole different thing than being raised with servants for 5 generations, which is what Europe was. So I maintain that the Gilded Age is a much better way to apply for us. So the book series, which is going to wind up being 7 books, is called Gilded Saratoga, the series. Okay, first one being Annandale, the second one being What If.
That was your first book, was it? Yeah.
Yeah, my
Annandale,
the
right.
third book is Bankrupt. It's not done yet, but it gets into that whole series. But they're basically in 5-year blocks. First one's 1890. Second one's 1890. What If is from 1891 to 1895. And what happened was I was doing the history of the Lathrop family from Albany, who had houses in Saratoga. And I realized at the wedding, some of the other big names in Saratoga were at the wedding. These families weren't standalone families. They were all integrated. They were social friends. It totally changed how I looked at it. So that's why I went to fiction and started writing about these people who were all interrelated. Because they had kids the same age, they would have been going to the same parties, same plays, same everything. And it just changed how I approached everything.
Yeah, the history part of it, to me, is very fascinating. But what I want to know is, did you go to an old newspaper to figure out the murder? That there was a murder or a body found or something, and then built on that?
Yep. Yes, and I did it back before they had computers in everybody's house. And
Yeah, I know.
the internet and
You used
everything.
the
Okay, when I started,
microfiche.
You got it, okay, and drove to libraries all over the Western world. But yeah, that's exactly how I started out doing it. And to this day, I still do a lot of it. One of the things I try to do in my book is use old language. Your previous interview, I totally agree with that. Try to do it in the language of that time. Try to make people feel like what it was like to live in the 1890s.
And you do that in your
Thank
book,
you.
because I noticed the language is a little bit different than what I would say today's is.
Well, my dictionary it was published in 1908.
Okay.
That's the dictionary I use. So
Is that the one you're using?
That's the one I use, okay? Because it gives
Where
me
did you even find a dictionary printed?
eBay.
Oh, okay.
You can find anything on eBay.
Okay.
eBay or 8 Books, either one of
Okay.
them, okay? Will give you everything you want on that. But that's how I wound up doing it. I just, try to say it like they said it. Try to use their language.
And you do, because I read this and I'm going, oh my, how did he do that? As I read your books, it's like, oh my goodness, he's got it. He's really nailed it.
Thank you. I'm trying to put you there. I want
You
you to
are.
feel
You
like
are putting me
thank you.
there.
Thank you. Okay.
Yeah.
One of these days, I'm going to actually give a tour of the right, like from the houses, and go down and tell the story of right in front of the houses where the carriage ride was. Where the
Because
murder
you know
was.
the streets. You're
got it.
talking the
Just-
streets.
just still walking.
When
towards
I
that.
was a kid, it was like we would go to Saratoga. And we would always go down, and I'm sorry, I don't know the name of the street, but all those huge houses
North Broadway.
with the servants' quarters in the back. And it's amazing those structures are still there, but they certainly aren't used for servants' quarters,
Not
probably.
anymore. No, what was very interesting is the carriage house in the back, that was for the male servants.
For the male?
Male servants. The female servants lived in the house.
Oh, I did not know.
You can't have them, you can have them together. My goodness.
Well, I didn't know. I thought they were married.
I told you back, no, almost never, okay? No, so the male servants lived in the back, and the women servants lived in the.
And they had like the
house.
carriage, a place for the carriage to go in the
Oh,
back.
yeah, it's really neat. It's very good. A lot of the carriage houses are now houses on their own. They were sold off from the main property
I know.
back in the 70s.
Yeah.
But we are fortunate to have a lot of very old properties still up there, still able to see
And
it.
they haven't been torn down and
No.
restructured or
No.
anything,
No.
yeah.
So that's how it goes.
Yeah, but I think that the idea of the history of Saratoga, every community, let's face it, we've all been around the same time, but there seems to be something special, I think because of the eliteness of Saratoga, bear with me, with the racetrack. And the people that rushed there during the summer, the genteel that went there, and the hotels that brought people there in the summer during the racetrack and for the waters and the spas and you name it.
So you just did what a lot of people do. In that years, you thought that the people came for the track. It was the other way around. The track came because all the rich people were already coming to Saratoga.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
Yeah, and it doesn't show up till the 1860s. The hotels start in 1810. So
See, that's why I need you on the show, because I did not know that.
So what happened was they were looking to start thoroughbred racing, And they thought, well, where's everybody going in the summer? And all the rich families are going to Saratoga, so they put a track there.
Get out. Is that true?
It's true. Okay, so it came the other way around.
I did not know that.
Okay, and people say, oh, they came for the water. There was waters everywhere. They used to bottle the water.
Sharon Springs had.
Sharon
some-
Springs,
yeah.
Lebanon Springs,
Yeah.
or just Union Springs. Okay, these were all springs back in the day, and yet Saratoga continued going because Saratoga had a whole rich social life. Okay, it was about a place to go, and they got away with it because they didn't allow gambling or drinking on Sundays. So the churches went along with it. You take that one block on Washington Street, immediately off Broadway. You have 3 massive churches within one block. Why? They were right in the middle of the hotels. That's where the hotels were.
Yeah.
They all had sanctuaries in the basement they used in winter. And then the main room up on the second
Was
floor
on the sec-
was just for the summer with the summer guests.
Yeah.
So you have to get into that, and you have to get into the music played and how people.
So
actually
the water didn't, I remember as a kid, my dad would say, if you drink a glass of this, which was awful, I'm sorry.
I agree with you.
It was awful, sulfur tasting, I'll buy you a candy bar. And you know what? I didn't want that candy bar. It's like, forget that candy bar. You can't bribe me with this stuff.
There are different opinions on the springs, okay?
But it's good for you, I guess.
Yeah, well, everybody went to the springs every morning, but not for the reason you think.
Oh, okay.
There was a dance every night in Saratoga. At that time, in the Gilded Age, there was a dance every single night. So you went to the springs in the morning to get the gossip on who danced with who.
Oh, okay.
Because if you didn't go, you were the gossip. So everybody went to the springs every morning, but they went there to protect their own reputation.
Oh, okay.
Okay, and to find out who they could have a scandal about. It really becomes a social event.
It's the old
not
water
a-
cooler.
As a matter of fact, if you look in the movie Saratoga, there's a movie Saratoga, and the woman takes a sip of her water and throws it away very quickly. In the movie, it's an old black and white movie, and she flips the water away because it's so bad. I mean, because of the mineral water.
Yeah.
Okay? So it's kind of interesting. Did people come for the water? I'm sure some did.
Yeah.
Okay? I don't know why, but I'm sure some did. I'm not a fan of the waters.
Yeah, I'm not, but that's neither here nor there. But I do see people going there with their jugs and
Yeah.
filling up their jugs and taking them off to wherever they go. I don't know. Your books are great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and I encourage people to, if you want to learn a little bit about the history of Saratoga and have a good read besides,
Very good.
check out your books.
Thank you very much.
Hollis Palmer.
Yes.
Yeah, thanks
Thank
for
you.
being here.
My
Okay.
pleasure.
We're going to talk to a poet next, Therese Broderick. Hey,
Hello.
it's good. I haven't seen you in a long time.
It's good to be back.
Yeah, so what are you doing you're the coordinator of Library of Poets? Tell me about that.
I'm the coordinator of what I call the Local Poets Library.
Okay.
It's a personal collection of hundreds of books authored by local poets.
Okay.
And I have it in my house. I've been collecting for about 20 years, and I hope that the library will serve the community as both a historic record of local poetry in the 21st century, but also as an inspiration to younger people, to the next generation. So I offer books for free to borrow and return on an honor system. And I have a list online of all the 400 authors and titles.
Do you really? Wow.
Yes, and I also do a traveling exhibit, a selection of the books that I'm very willing to take to community groups, classrooms, literary organizations,
And spread the word.
and spread the word, exactly.
When we talk about poetry, there seems to be some confusion. Okay. Poetry can be rhyming, every other line rhyming, or it can be prose where there's no rhyming, it's just lines. And then you got haiku, and you have, let's talk about poetry.
Well, poetry is one of the most multidimensional arts that have ever, been practiced by human beings. I love the fact that there are as many definitions of poetry as there are poets, and especially in this time, the contemporary times, really the greatest poets are rappers. And so if you're going to talk about what is poetry, you really have to be aware of the rap music and the rap poetry. They have distributed their poetry worldwide, so more people know about rap music and rap poetry than about any other
So
kind of
poetry snuck into the,
Well,
kind of
well,
snuck
some
in,
would-
right?
Some would say they were poets first,
Yeah.
and then they
Put the
altered
music
it.
to it.
They created something unique of their own, and that's what happens with poets of every generation. They turn something into their own invention.
I mean, if you look at Poe, I mean, with Evermore, you know, the Raven, that's poetry.
You can call it poetry, yes, exactly.
Yeah, I mean, so it's, so anything that rhymes is poetry, right?
No, you can have some rhyming poetry that you might just call doggerel.
Oh, okay.
You know, but as I said, in my opinion, every single person has the right to call something a poem or not a poem. There is no one authority who
Okay.
can declare that
There's
this
no
is a
poet
poem, this
police
is a-
or
There are
anything?
no poets. But I mean, that doesn't, I don't mean to say that poets do not have their particular viewpoints about poetry. Almost every poet does. And it's not to say that there shouldn't be a lively a dialogue, you know, about whether something is or isn't a poet. But what I like to do, I'm a big tent poet, so I like to include anything that the poet calls poetry. I like to say, yeah, why not? Let's include that.
So what, you brought a couple books, so let's
Yeah.
talk about what you've brought and why that's important in your library.
Yes. Well, I brought samples of the different kinds of materials I have in my local poets
Okay.
library. So this is a book, obviously.
Yeah.
It's by the local poet B.K. Kwan, who teaches at Union College. He's a Cambodian American poet. And this is called a chapbook instead of a book because it's a very slender, usually less than 48 pages. And this was written by Alan Catlin, who's a legend in Schenectady and Capital Region poetry. He's an extremely prolific author.
So these are local authors that
Oh,
you're-
yes, because my collection is all local Capital Region authors.
Okay.
Yes, and then we have some poets who are also artists, like Dee Collin, and this is one of her artworks that she's created. So she's a very versatile artist, poetry and art, performance, a community activist. And then we also have journals. This is a local journal put out by the Albany Poets Organization. So this would be a place where local poets can submit to be published.
Oh.
And then there were also what are called broadsides. Broadsides are basically small posters of one poem, and they can be letterpressed or finely produced. So these are works of art, combining words and visual art. And then finally we have anthologies like this, which was put together by the local nonprofit organization called Hudson Valley Writers Guild. And the Guild has been around for more than 30 years. Its mission is to promote and develop local writers as well as to develop local audiences. And I encourage anybody to go to their website, hvwg.org. They also have a Facebook page. You'll find out a lot about local literary events through the Hudson Valley Writers Guild.
This is amazing. I guess I would just say, if people have books on poetry that they would like to donate, would you accept them?
Absolutely. I often go to the Schenectady County Public Library.
Yeah, when they have their book sale.
Oh, and a lot of people donate books to that. And then the wonderful thing about that sale is they have a dedicated section
for
for
poetry.
poetry. So I make a beeline
Yeah.
for that section, and I look through, and any local poet,
Okay.
I'll purchase the book.
Okay, so therefore, if you have books on poetry you'd like to donate to Therese, she'd be happy to get them, right? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
So, do you give classes to teach people, or so you're really an enthusiastic supporter of poetry?
Yes, because I'm a practitioner. I've
Okay.
had a practice of writing and sharing in the community for more than 20 years. I do have a Master of Fine Arts degree, but I think my focus is on participating in the local community. So over the past 22 years, I've written, I've performed, I've judged contests, I've participated in community festivals, I've shown up at fairs, and published with local publishers, grassroots, small publishers. I've visited as a guest poet, I've gone into classrooms.
Would you like to share one of your poems?
Oh, I actually did not bring one of my poems, but.
Would you like to share a poem?
Oh, let's see.
I mean, we might as well hear a
yeah.
poem, right? We're here for talking about poetry.
Right, actually, I do have a small poem in this anthology,
There you go.
but
This is totally unexpected, so
Yeah,
let her
this is
look,
a-
let her
this is-
look,
this
and
is
we'll talk about how.
unexpected, but actually, let me see if I can recite this poem.
It's okay. Putting you on the spot,
yes,
and you're being a good sport about it.
Right. This is called First Love Poem, and this actually is a poem my husband wrote for me.
Oh, nice.
So, and it goes,
So you're bound to remember that one.
right. I almost didn't fight when I first saw you because you looked 16. Now you are 40 and you still look 16. A sweet 16 at that. I'm glad I bit. I do have a sweet tooth for you.
Did he write that? Frank wrote that for
Frank,
you?
my husband, wrote that for me. Yeah, he writes me poems.
I know
Yeah.
her husband, and it's like, this is surprising that he wrote something so sweet, and not that you don't deserve it. It's just like I see him differently, you know. He has a passionate side on him. But
Yes, he wrote me a whole book of poems.
oh, that's so sweet. So, Frank, you're such a guy. He's an author unto himself as well, and has written a number of books, and they're all well received as well. So you guys are a perfect match. Yeah, you do poetry, he does books.
The literary life is a real important and rewarding part of our lives in the community in Albany.
Good.
Yeah.
I want to thank you for being here. I'm going to tell you who's coming up actually, we got a great lineup coming up next time. We have two performers coming up, that Deb Fish and Dan Krishner, and they'll be performing with us on our next show. We also, by the way, Angelo Santa Barbara is going to be here for a quick intro. The Harbinger Theater will be here. Landis Arboretum will be here, and Fred will be here talking about his plant sale and their bake sale, and they have a book sale. There's books there. So they will be having theirs coming up as well. Schenectady Historian is going to be here. We're going to be talking about a big fair that is coming on, and it has to do with the commemoration of, well, he'll tell you all about it if you watch the show on the 19th. Schenectady Light Opera, they're going to be here. It Should Have Been You, and that's going to be a great production as well. We do want to, again, wish you all, if you're celebrating either Easter or Passover or even Ramadan, I believe that is this month as well, that you have a pleasant holiday and that you are able to share that with your friends and family. We're filming here at Proctor's at Open Stage Media, and I want to thank all of my volunteers who come here every week to help out, and wish them a very happy holiday as well. Thank you for watching. I'm the host and producer of Capital Region Today, and we're in our 25th year, so we just keep on going. Thanks for watching.